and welcome to African News on VOP TV. I am Fina Okechukwu. We begin in Kenya, where Pastor Paul Mackenzie, his wife, and 93 other accomplices were charged with manslaughter at the Mombasa Law Court. All pleaded not guilty to the 38 counts of manslaughter allegedly committed between January 2021 and February 2023. Recall that more than 400 members, including children of Mackenzie's Good News International Church, had died, and their bodies were discovered in dozens of shallow graves on an 800-acre ranch in a remote area known as Shakahola Forest in the coastal county of Kilifi. The graves were found after police rescued 15 emaciated church members who told investigators that Mackenzie had instructed them to fast to death before the world ends. Autopsies on some of the bodies found in the graves showed they died from starvation, strangulation, or suffocation. According to local media, the magistrate ruled Tuesday for the 95 accused to appear before the court on February 13, where he would give his judgment on bail and bond terms. And in South Africa, a suspect in connection with a fire in a 5-story building in central Johannesburg last year that killed 77 people has been arrested by police in Gauteng. Gauteng police spokesperson Dimakatoso Nuvehului said the suspects were arrested after he confessed before the Commission of Inquiry into the building fire, and that the 29-year-old man will appear in court soon on charges of arson, 76 counts of murder, and 120 counts of attempted murder. At least 12 children were among those who were killed in the blaze last year, with more than 50 people injured. The fire affected some of the country's most valuable people, while also highlighting a long-standing problem regarding abandoning buildings in South Africa. While South Africa has seen fires devastate informal settlements before, the Johannesburg fire is widely seen as the worst in recent memory. Staying in South Africa, the former municipal manager of Namakwa municipality in the Northern Cape, Aubrey Batman, has been sentenced for his part in an 80 million rand tender deal. The 64-year-old, who is also a former economic freedom fighter EFF provincial leader, was sentenced to 3 years correctional supervision by the Springbok Magistrate Court. Batman was accused of awarding a tender for supplying paver bricks and cabs worth 79,966 and 599 rand without following correct tender procedures. Lieutenant Colonel Tebogo Tebe, the provincial Hawk spokesperson, explaining the details of the case, said the Batman and 3 other co-conspirators were arrested following allegation of fraud that took place in June 2013. However, the Directorate for Priority Crimes Investigation, known as Hawks, said the Batman was found guilty for contravention of Municipal Finance Management Act in June 2023. From South Africa to Namibia, where the ruling SWAPO party says President Hage Geingob is in good spirit and is receiving good medical attention for his cancer treatment. Last week, the presidency said Mr. Geingob would start treatment for cancer after routine medical checkups, and a follow-up biopsy led to the detection of cancerous cells. It did not give more details on his diagnosis, but says he would continue to carry out his duties. In a statement, SWAPO Deputy Leader Netumbo Nandi Ndatiwa said the president would continue to conduct the business of the party and government while giving the necessary priority to the medical treatment, the state media reported. Ms. Ndatiwa also appealed to Namibians to allow the 82-year-old leader and his family to focus on his recovery without speculation. Namibia is due to hold presidential and parliamentary elections later this year. Mr. Geingob, who has been president of the Southern African nation since 2015, is due to finish his second term and final term in office. In Tanzania, the primary opposition party, Chadema, is gearing up for widespread protests to address concerns related to proposed electoral bill, the soaring cost of living, and delays in constitutional reforms. The protests aim to exert pressure on the government. The opposition party specifically opposes 3 electoral bills presented in Parliament last November, calling for their withdrawal on the grounds that the views of numerous stakeholders were not adequately considered. Of particular note is that these protests mark the first mass demonstration in Tanzania since President Samia Suluhu Hassan assumed power in March 2021. She succeeded her predecessor, John Magufuli, who faced accusation of stifling dissent by insisting a ban on political rallies. Police in the commercial city of Dar es Salaam have granted permission for the march. They have issued warnings against violence and implementation of reforms in preparation for the upcoming general elections next year. Chadema announced that the approved permission was secured through a consensus with the police, emphasizing the commitment to ensure peaceful demonstrations. Tanzania, known for maintaining relative stability in a tumultuous region, is witnessing increased political activity in anticipation of these opposition-led protests. President Hassan, who has garnered significant local and international goodwill, is recognized for adopting a reformist political stance since taking office. You're watching African News. More story after this quick break. Join us again. Welcome back. The Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ, has reported that 47 journalists have been jailed in sub-Saharan Africa, with number of incarcerated journalists rising from 31 in 2022 to 47 as of December 1st, 2023. According to the committee, it paints a bleak picture for sub-Saharan Africa. CPJ ranks Eritrea at the forefront of press freedom violators in Africa, with 16 journalists being behind bars. The country holds the 7th position globally for the longest-standing case of imprisoned journalists without any charges. The CPJ report indicates that Ethiopia follows Eritrea, with 8 journalists in detention, and Cameroon. According to the report, the number of imprisoned Ethiopian journalists reflects the challenging media environment in the East African country. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, Stanis Shiamala languishes in a communal cell at the notorious Makala prison in Kinshasa. CPJ expresses concern about the lack of global attention to the plight of his correspondent, as well as other journalists incarcerated in African prisons. Famine is stalking parts of Ethiopia. The epicenter is in the northern Tigray region. Villagers who have not yet recovered from the ravages of the recent war in the region are now stricken by severe drought. Report has it that hundreds of children dying of starvation are trickling in from remote areas. Addis Ababa federal government has denied that a famine is imminent and says it is working to provide the necessary aid. However, veterans of relief operations are comparing the crisis to the situation in 1984, when a combination of drought and war caused a famine that killed up to 1 million people. Also, the U.S. Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimates that more than 200 million Ethiopians are in need of food, of whom about a third are receiving assistance in Tigray, which is especially alarming. And moving on to Sudan, where army forces repelled an initial attack by the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, on the army command in Baba Nusa of the West Kordofan state. The clashes that ensued resulted in the death of dozens of civilians. It was reported that the RSF infiltrated Baba Nusa and clashed with army troops in the Al-Salam, Al-Wahad, and Al-Tabiya neighborhoods. Army artillery and warplanes responded with heavy bombardments, targeting RSF position in the southern, northern, eastern outskirts of the town. The violence sparked a wave of displacement among Babadonas and residents, with the main market and the city hospital closing their doors. Meanwhile, Mohammed Hamid Daglo Hemeti, the leader of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, had a telephone conversation with Martin Griffiths, the United Nations Under Secretary General of Humanitarian Affairs, to discuss the urgent need to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid to civilians in war-affected regions of Sudan. In a statement, Hameti revealed that they discussed with Griffiths the process of ensuring safe passage for humanitarian aid convoy through RSF-controlled areas. Specifically, Al Jazeera states to reach the state of Kordofan, Darfur, White Nile, and Khartoum, as well as other parts of Sudan experiencing severe humanitarian crisis. The RSF forces control 4 out of 5 states in the Darfur region, Khartoum, and Al Jazeera states. In the Kordofan region, the parliamentary forces have failed to seize the army garrison in El Obeid of North Kordofan, and fighting is ongoing for control of the army command in Baba Busa of West Kordofan. Dagolo further emphasized the importance of maintaining a consistent presence of aid organization in Kordofan and Darfur, citing the immediate necessity for humanitarian operations in these regions. The UN relief officials has not yet issued a statement regarding the phone call, as the military-led government in Port Sudan has expressed concerns that Dagolo's communication and recent visits are aimed at gaining international recognition as a de facto ruler of certain Sudanese regions. Also, Sudan's foreign ministry has criticized the European Council (EC) and the decision to impose sanctions on 3 companies associated with the Sudanese Army Forces (SAF), denouncing it as unjust. The EC had recently placed sanctions on 6 entities for their alleged involvement in financing and arming the Sudanese Army and the Parliamentary Rapid Support Force (RSF), accusing them of supporting activities undermining Sudan's stability and political transition. Among the sanctioned entities were 3 linked to the SAF and 3 involved in the procuring military equipment for the RSF. In response, Sudan's foreign ministry issued a statement asserting that the European move lacked objectivity, highlighting a perceived imbalance between the National Army, defending Sudanese interests, and the RSF, described as a terrorist militia committing various atrocities against the Sudanese people. The ministry pointed to a United Nations expert report under Security Council Resolution number 1591, providing ample information about individuals and entities threatening Sudan's stability, committing war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocides. It called on the EU to fully and fulfill its political and moral responsibility by pressuring entities supporting the RSF to cease supplying weapons, mercenaries, funding, and media coverage to the alleged terrorist militia. From Sudan to the war in Gaza, where intense Israeli airstrikes in Gaza overnight resulted in a reported 125 casualties. According to the health ministry in the Hamas-controlled region, the attacks coincided with ongoing talks in Cairo aimed at securing a ceasefire. Israel issued evacuation orders for a section of Khan Yunis, home to approximately 500,000 residents and displaced individuals. The World Food Programme warned of catastrophic food insecurity in Gaza. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres criticized Israel's rejection of a 2-state solution, viewed by the US as crucial for lasting peace. The heaviest fighting occurred in Khan Yunis, where the Israeli military claimed to have encircled the city. Gaza Hospital received the bodies of 125 people, and the Hamas government reported over 20 casualties, accusing Israel of displacing tens of thousands forcefully. The Palestinian Red Crescent reported the 3 killed and 3 wounded when Israeli forces targeted its headquarters in Khan Yunis. Meanwhile, the letter from a bipartisan group of 210 House lawmakers condemned South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice as grossly unfounded and defamatory, led by Reps. Chris Smith and Kathy Manin, the lawmakers expressed their disgust at the filing, accusing South Africa of attempting to demonize and delegitimize Israel. They called on the State Department to push back against the case, offer Israel appropriate support, and urge U.S. allies to join these efforts. Notable GOP signatories include Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Republican Caucus Chair Elise Stefanik, and chairs of various House committees. Democratic signatories include moderate pro-Israel Democrats and some supporting a ceasefire, including Reps Josh Harder, David Throne, Amy Bear, Dan Phillips, Robert Garcia, Elisa Slotkin, and Adam Shaved. You are still watching the African news. We will go on another quick break, and when we come back, more stories awaits. Welcome back. The M23 rebels in eastern DRC Congo accuse the United Nations mission in the country, MONUSCO, of providing information used by the government-led coalition to plan drone strikes against their opposition and unarmed civilians in North Kivu province. Rebel spokesperson Lawrence claimed that MONUSCO's surveillance and their drones collected and transmitted information on the rebel group's position and activities. The rebels, part of a government coalition with militias like the UN-sanctioned FDLR and troops from Burundi and SADC, alleged that drone strikes targeted civilians. Kanyuka accused UN peacekeepers of biased behavior and killing of civilian population. UN spokesperson Stephanie Juraj states that peacekeepers were assisting the Congolese army in preventing the M23 armed group from advancing towards Goma and Sake. The UN mission, present for nearly 25 years, is scheduled to withdraw all its troops from DR Congo by the end of 2024. Heavy fighting is underway in central Somalia after Al-Shabaab militants attacked military base in Mudug region. The Somalia Federal Forces have since August 2022 been conducting a major offensive against the Al-Qaeda-linked group. Eyewitnesses said they had heavy gunfire and explosion at dawn on Wednesday. The attack reportedly began with a suicide bombing targeting government special forces. Galmog Security Minister Mohammed Abid said that troops are still battling the militants in Ad village, where the military bases are located. According to reports in Somalia, the army, with the help of locals, thwarted the attack, inflicting heavy losses on terrorists. But Al-Shabaab said it seized the 5 military bases and killed dozens of soldiers. A monumental occasion unfolded in Egypt as President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin virtually marked the start of construction of El Dabaa, Egypt's first nuclear power plant. This collaboration with Russia's Rosatom represents a significant step in diversifying Egypt's energy resources and reducing dependence on fossil fuel. El-Sisi emphasized the project's contribution to energy security and affordability, citing the current global market instability as a driving force behind reviving the nation's nuclear program. Putin echoed the statement, highlighting the project's role in fostering bilateral cooperation and creating modern industries and skilled jobs in Egypt. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken visited Ivory Coast during his ongoing African tour and pledged an additional $45 million in aid to bolster security efforts in coastal West Africa. This region has witnessed growing instability in recent years, plagued by jihadist insurgency that spread from Mali. Blinken's commitment aims to enhance cooperation with Ivory Coast, a nation impacted by these regional threats, and support its leadership in combating extremism and violence. The announcement signifies the U.S. strategic focus on security partnership in Africa and its continued engagement in addressing the Sahel region's challenges. And moving on to sports. Mauritania's goalkeeper Babacar Niasse dedicated his Man of the Match award to his teammates following their historic victory against Algeria in the last group game of 2023 Africa Cup of Nations. Niasse played a crucial role in keeping Mauritania in the game with impressive saves after they took the lead in the first half, expressing pride in the collective effort of the team. Niasse thanked the people of Mauritania for the opportunity to represent his country. Acknowledging the anticipated difficulty of the game, he expressed a commitment to learning from any errors and improving. The win marks Mauritania's first ever victory in the history of the AFCON. Chris Hughton was relieved of his duty as a coach of Ghana on Tuesday, following the team's elimination from the Africa Cup of Nations 2023, as confirmed by the country's Football Association in a statement. Ghana secured a third-place finish in Group B after a 2-2 draw with Mozambique on Monday, and their slim chances of advancing to the last 16 were extinguished on Tuesday, with results in Group C and D. Hughton, whose father had Ghanaian roots, assumed the coaching role in March and had previously served as technical advisor to the team during the World Cup in Qatar. The 65-year-old, a former manager of Brighton and Hove Albion and Newcastle United, managed to secure 4 victories in his 13 matches in charge. However, he faced mounting pressure, especially after Ghana's unexpected loss to Comoros Islands in a World Cup qualifier in November. During the Cup of Nations, Ghana suffered a defeat in their opening games against Cape Verde Islands, marked by an incident where an irate fan attempted to attack Hughton. Subsequently, they managed only draws against Egypt and Mozambique, accumulating a major 2 points in the group stage. And that's all on the African news on VOP today. Don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel at VOP TV Live and follow us on all social media platforms. I am Fina Okechukwu.